first official episode of Kultura Travel's podcast. And what better way to get started than by talking about the main reason for our company forming, which is cultural travel. What is cultural travel? I believe many people have this idea behind it and trying to find the fulfillment with their travel, but don't necessarily know about this. Cultural travel is essentially immersive, respectful, and participatory travel that connects you with the traditions, language, culture, and stories of the destination that you are visiting. Essentially, you are engaging deeply with the area, the culture that you are visiting, rather than just focusing on taking the most Instagrammable photo video to get X amount of likes, X amount of followers as a result. That's fine if that's your goal, but I want to challenge you to travel more immersively and culturally, because this helps with ethical travel as well, in that you are helping preserve the history, culture, and language of the destinations you're visiting. And this in turn helps us with understanding how we're all connected and what travel really means, connection. What are some examples of cultural travel? One of my favorite ones, and one that I've experienced myself, is being in a village in Moldova with a babushka or grandmother, learning how to make placenta from a traditional recipe and actually going through the steps the host yourself, and then eventually serving and eating your own placenta. Another example is during your trip to Morocco, perhaps you go on a tour into the Sahara Desert with a traditional Berber tribe and learn how to navigate the stars, which is what they use to navigate the desert in the past. Or a simple one is just staying in a traditional home in Georgia and really learning the family's life, style, and stories. And one of my favorite examples of this is if you've ever watched Netflix film A Tourist Guide to Love, when the main male character has the female main character puts down her tour guide book and he says, immerse into the surroundings, look where you are, engage your senses. You're not going to get that from a book. And this is exactly the point that we're trying to bring with Kultura Travel. What does this look like? Traditional tourism versus cultural travel. In traditional tourism, you're usually focused on sightseeing. You're usually going with foreign-owned companies within that destination to take you to the main sites or the most Instagrammable attractions. And it's very surface level understanding. So you're only getting a hint or a flavor of where you're at rather than really diving into the history and the culture of the region you're visiting. With cultural travel, you are focusing on the participation and immersion in the environment. So going beyond the surface level to becoming into the experience. This prioritizes locally owned businesses and a glimpse into the local life rather than that curated bubble that we tend to see with tourism attractions. And you're having a deeper engagement with those customs, languages, and culture. And with that, you frankly might face a language barrier, and it's with technology now so easy to overcome. So it's really about being open-minded, adaptable, and flexible. Why does this matter at all? Why should you be considering cultural travel, Kultura Travel in general? With cultural travel, you're going to get less crowds because you're going away from the traditional tourism market and into a less common visited destination. If you've ever been in a situation where you've literally waited in line to take a photo of the Mona Lisa in the Louvre and you waited an hour, you're finally relatively close so that if you zoom in it's not super grainy, and you take your photo, start heading to the next exhibit in the gallery, only to see that some bro named David threw up a peace sign in your photo and you just wasted all that time. Again, if that's your goal to see the main tourist sites, that's great, but I would challenge you to combine those main sites with something more immersive where you're not necessarily worrying about some random person throwing up a peace sign in your photos and videos, because there's no crowds. Another big one is the impact on the local economy that comes with it and the authentic connection. So one of the big problems we're seeing in mass tourism is, especially in Bali, is that a lot of foreigners are moving into Bali, purchasing land, and therefore escalating the cost of living so that the locals can actually afford to live there anymore, so they're leaving. And this is a great opportunity for the economy of Indonesia, but it's also not in the sense that the locals can't afford to live there. And now there's this problem of having to preserve the local language and culture. And I can speak to this because I experienced it directly when I went to Bali on a 3-day trip from my assignment in Indonesia. And I speak Indonesian. I went there and everyone was surprised that I spoke Indonesian, and they kept trying to speak English with me, and I would have to ask them to speak in Indonesian with me, which was so silly because I'm in their country speaking their local language. That's just an example of some of the impact from mass tourism. Another thing is that by going cultural travel route, you are directly supporting local families and local businesses. Again, ethical travel, in the end, cultural travel is helping with language preservation, culture preservation, and history preservation. And the last one that I think is the biggest point to bring home is the personal growth that you get from these types of experiences. Even if you're there only for one experience, if you're there for 2 weeks, a month, you're doing the digital nomad life, good for you, and you're just there, immersing into the local culture. Frankly, I'm jealous. I want to get back to that. But the main point is that you leave there with a new perspective on maybe something of your own opinions or ideas before you arrived to that destination and did the cultural experience. You're leaving there with new ideas, with new stories, and a new understanding. You are also gaining empathy, language skills, and also potentially a new friend and connection. In conclusion, why should you consider cultural travel? I already listed a bunch of different reasons on the benefits with it, but in an era of technology-driven, influencer-driven decisions with mass over-tourism, cultural travel offers an alternative. You can have slow experiential travel in a more fulfilling way to explore the destination and your dream vacation that you've been saving up for and finally get to go on. It also respects both the traveler and the host and the country you're visiting. I encourage you to take a step back from the travel checklist to combine a experience that may challenge you to face a language barrier or to step outside of your comfort zone. Because outside of this comfort zone is where you're going to learn how to be a traveler and not a tourist. This is just first episode, a little glimpse of what is coming with Kultura Travel. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments and ideas as we are building our beta tester version of the application. If you're ready to travel deeper, please get started and sign up with Kultura Travel.